Hi, very glad to see you on the channel. Before you start listening to the story, write in the comments whether you like the voice on the video. 2 weeks off. That's all I wanted. I cashed in some PTO, booked a last-minute trip up to Lake Superior, and let the world spin without me. No calls, no emails, just hikes, coffee by the fire, and enough silence to remember who I was before spreadsheets and early morning trains. Samantha encouraged it. "You never unplug," she said, pouring coffee the morning I left. "This is good for you." She smiled as she kissed me goodbye. "Clear your head." When I got back, the house was spotless. Not unusual, but different, like it had been scrubbed for someone else. Even the doormat had been shaken out. Her perfume, normally subtle, hung in the air too strongly, like it hadn't quite faded after a rush job. A bottle of wine sat half-finished on the counter. The label was new. We'd never bought that kind before. "Client gift," she said casually when I asked. One of the guys from work thought I deserved a treat after last week. "Nice of him," I said. She just smiled. Corporate world's got its perks. Samantha had started working again about 6 months ago, just part-time, some kind of consulting role for a local business group. She said it gave her flexibility. Cash under the table. Nothing major. Just coordinating projects or reviewing presentations or whatever buzzwords passed as acceptable these days. I'd been married to her 8 years. I could tell when something didn't fit. Her hours were odd. Meetings at 6 p.m. on a Tuesday. Strategy brunches on Sundays. She stopped keeping her phone face up when we watched TV. Her wardrobe shifted, subtly but unmistakably. Blouses replaced hoodies. Heels came out more. Once, she came home with her hair done differently, claiming a client offered her a freestyle session while they discussed image branding. I laughed at the time, but I remembered it. What struck me more than any of that, though, was her attitude. Samantha had always been smart, sharp, driven, clever with words. But lately, she moved differently, confident in ways that weren't always natural. She walked like someone rehearsing something. She smiled like she was hiding a car behind her back. The night I got back from the trip, she made us dinner, steak, asparagus, and roasted potatoes, a favorite of mine. She poured wine and talked about her latest client, someone in finance who apparently wanted to restructure his brand presence. "Lots of these guys need help with their image," she said. "You wouldn't believe how clueless they are." "Must be interesting work," I said. She nodded. "It's unpredictable." She didn't ask much about my trip. Didn't notice the gifts I brought back. Just cleaned her plate, poured more wine, and disappeared upstairs before I'd even finished mine. Later, while she was in the shower, I walked into our closet to grab my sweatshirt. Her side was neater than usual, and one of her shoe boxes had been moved. It caught my eye because Samantha didn't touch the top shelf often. That box had once held hiking boots. I knew because I bought them for her on our second anniversary. She wore them once. They gave her blisters. Now it was filled with envelopes. Target gift cards. A stack of cash. 2 receipts from high-end boutiques, neither of which matched her supposed income. I didn't touch anything. Just closed the box and walked out like nothing had happened. But in that moment, the floor beneath everything we'd built began to crack. And I knew I was going to find out exactly what was hiding behind the word consulting. The next morning, I woke before she did. Her side of the bed was still warm, hair spilled across the pillow like she hadn't moved much in her sleep. I stood for a long time in the doorway, just watching her breathe. Something about the moment made me hesitate, like I was studying someone I knew in theory, but not in practice. She stirred, blinked up at me. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said. "Just up early. Couldn't sleep." She smiled, stretched, and pulled the blanket up to her chin. "Coffee." "Already started." I lied. In the kitchen, I checked the shoebox again. Still there. Still tucked into the back corner like she thought it would stay invisible if she just didn't look at it too long. I left it alone. I wasn't looking to catch her on a technicality. I wanted the story, not just the receipts. That afternoon, she left for what she called a strategy sit-down with one of her clients. I asked who. She shrugged. "You wouldn't know him. New guy. From the local CEO circle. I forget which firm." I nodded. "Where's the meeting?" She hesitated for a moment. "Lakeview Coffee." That was across town. She usually stuck to places closer. "I can drive you," I offered. She waved me off. "Already called a rideshare. Parking's a nightmare over there." The second she walked out the door, I opened her laptop. No password change. Same home screen. That was either carelessness or overconfidence. I dug around. Browser history had been wiped recently, like within the last 12 hours. I checked her calendar next. Her work entries were vague. Strat MTG GC. Client hours AB. But one in particular stood out. Slated for that day, it read, Red Fox PR check-in. There's no such company in town. Not one I'd heard of. So I searched. Turns out there was a business 2 towns over called Red Fox Logistics, but it had been defunct since 2018. That's when I knew. These weren't real appointments. These were covers. And PR check-in. Come on. But I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I needed a thread to pull. So I called Matt, an old buddy from the Corps, now working private security. Quiet guy. Sharp as a blade. Told him I needed help cloning a phone. He didn't ask why. Just sent a link. Click it. Load the script. Everything syncs. That night, while Samantha showered, I plugged her phone into my laptop, ran the script, and let the magic happen. In less than 10 minutes, I had a mirror image of her calendar, messages, and photo rolls synced into my cloud account. She came out wrapped in a towel, smiling. You're always on that computer. Finishing some work, I said. She walked over, kissed the top of my head, then moved to the closet. Early meeting tomorrow. Don't forget, I'm out by 7. I'll remember. She didn't notice the shoebox had shifted slightly. Didn't notice I just launched an investigation from our living room. The next day, while she was gone, I got a ping from the cloud. New entry, client hour, PM. It was scheduled under a new color tag, dark purple. First time I'd seen that color in the calendar. I checked the location, blank. I checked the contact info, none listed. Just PM. I dug through her contacts. Found a Paul Myers, listed as a marketing consultant. I remember the name. She mentioned him once, at dinner, months ago. Said he was a little too chatty, but harmless. I drove to his listed office. Small building, back of strip mall. I sat in the parking lot, watched the entrance, waited. At 3:08 p.m., Samantha walked out of the building. Alone, straight to the curb, got into a car, and rode off. I followed for a while, just to be sure. She stopped at a bookstore, grabbed coffee, went home. That night, I almost brought it up, almost said something. But I knew now that Paul wasn't the one. False lead. Whatever was happening, it wasn't with him. That was her smoke. And I hadn't even stepped into the fire yet. The next time I went into that closet, I wasn't looking for anything specific. I told myself I was just grabbing my old duffel bag for a weekend trip with the guys. Something I wasn't even planning yet. But I think part of me knew I'd find something. I didn't expect it to be this easy. On the top shelf, right beside the familiar shoebox she used for cash and cards, was a slim white gift bag tied with a red ribbon. Notad, no branding. Just folded neatly, deliberately, like it had been placed there to be retrieved in private. I pulled it down and opened it slowly. Inside, a silver money clip. Elegant, brushed finish. Expensive but not flashy. Engraved with 2 letters. CM, my initials aren't CM. Her father's aren't. No one in our family has those letters. I held it for a long time in the palm of my hand, watching the light catch on the curve. This wasn't random. It was personal. It was intentional. There was a note tucked behind the tissue paper. Not folded. Just a single card with gold trim. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. This wasn't for me. This was for someone she hadn't planned on me ever meeting. I didn't rage. I didn't break anything. I just took the clip out to the garage and got to work. I unscrewed the faceplate from my old drill and pried out a tiny magnet from a base. I glued it flat and silent, just inside the hinge of the clip, then used a file to score a nearly invisible notch across the back. It wouldn't show right away, but give it a few weeks in pocket, that engraving would warp. The hinge would stick. The clip would fail. Just enough to feel cheap. Enough to feel disappointing. Then I repackaged it perfectly. Tissue refluffed. Ribbon retied. I placed it back on the shelf like it had never moved. Later that evening, Samantha came home buzzing from another consult. She walked in carrying a bottle of whiskey, high-end, single malt. Client gift, she said, smiling. He insisted. She held it out like it was an award she'd earned. Can you believe that? Generous, I said. She poured us both a glass and asked about my day like everything was fine. and I answer like it was. We watched a movie, half distracted. She kept checking her phone. Quick flicks of her eyes. Subtle smiles that didn't reach her mouth. Once, she got a message and turned the screen away from me, the way someone might if they were embarrassed. Or hiding. Before bed, I asked her casually, "You ever do gifts for clients?" She looked at me quickly. "What do you mean?" "Like thank you gifts. Stuff like that." She hesitated just long enough. "Sometimes. It depends. Some of them are big spenders. You keep them happy. Ever give anything personal?" She laughed, too sharply. "No, nothing like that." I nodded. "Smart." She said nothing after that, but her fingers twitched against the edge of the pillow. The next morning, she was gone before I woke. I walked into the closet. The gift bag was gone. That evening, she didn't say where she'd been. Just came in humming, tossed her keys into the bowl, and kissed my cheek like we'd never questioned each other. I asked if she wanted takeout. She said she was too tired, poured herself a drink, and disappeared into the bath. I checked her phone log remotely. A new contact had popped up twice that day. Initials only. CM, no photo. No business name. Just a number. I didn't call it. Not yet. Instead, I logged the number, copied the timestamp, and added it to a folder I'd started labeling Timeline. She was still lying, still hiding, still planning gifts that weren't meant for her husband. But that silver clip? It would fail, and so would everything that came after it. I couldn't stop thinking about the initials. CM. They haunted every spare second like background static. Samantha wasn't the type to write initials on anything without reason. She was precise, intentional, surgical when it came to impressions. That meant whoever he wasn't just a throwaway. He was someone she felt she had to acknowledge, subtly, but deliberately. So I started with a number. I ran it through a few lookup tools. Basic stuff at first, reverse searches, third-party databases. It pinged to a disposable account under a prepaid plan, which meant it was likely personal. Not business, not traceable, but that was enough of a clue. Personal meant intimate, frequent, trusted, and it narrowed my search. So I looked at her calendar again. There was a lunch labeled CM invoice review from a few weeks ago. No location. I pulled her card receipts from that day. She'd used our shared credit line at a downtown Italian place, Fiorello's. I'd taken her there for our anniversary the year before. Candlelit tables. White linen. It wasn't the kind of place you reviewed invoices. It was the kind of place you toasted to secrets. I went there the next afternoon, sat in the back corner, and waited. I brought a book, but didn't open it. I watched, and at 12:13 p.m., he walked in. Dark blue suit. Thin skin. Early 40s. Confidence stride. Familiar. I couldn't place him at first, but when he waved at the hostess and said, "Just one," meeting someone, I realized I had seen him before. At the neighborhood block party in May. His name was Colin Morgan. CM. He'd moved in 6 doors down. Finance consultant. Married. 2 kids. I watched as he was seated. 5 minutes passed. 10. No one showed. He checked his phone. Texted. Waited. Sipped water. At 12:37, he stood up, spoke to the hostess, then left. Alone. I followed him out at a distance. He walked back to his car, a silver sedan, and pulled out of the lot without hesitation. No sign of Samantha. That night, I asked her casually, "You ever work with anyone in the neighborhood?" She blinked. "What do you mean?" "Just wondering." "That new guy, Colin something?" "Finance." She sipped her wine. "Oh, Colin Morgan." I nodded. She smiled. "He asked me a while back about consulting on a side project. Nothing came of it. Friendly guy. Kind of too friendly," she said, laughing. "His wife's nice, though." And that was it. A flash of something passed through her eyes, but not fear. Not guilt. Just awareness. And it clicked. CM was a misdirect. Maybe intentional. Maybe not. But he wasn't the one. She hadn't met him at Fiorello's. She'd used his name as cover. Borrowed the initials to mark something else. Someone else. I could have pressed her then. Started an argument. But what would that do? She'd dodge. Deflect. Cry if needed. No, I needed more. So I set up the second phase. I installed a keystroke logger on her laptop. Nothing sophisticated. Just enough to capture her searches, notes, emails she thought she deleted. Within 2 days, it pinged. An address typed out 3 times. Wellspring Executive Lounge, 218 North Ridge Avenue. Private office rentals. Hourly rates. No cameras. I'd driven by it dozens of times. Looked like a co-working hub. I had no reason to ever step inside. But now I did. The calendar had an entry tagged simply, well, sync, scheduled for Friday at 11 a.m. I clear my schedule. That morning, I followed her car from a distance. She drove the same route, turned on in North Ridge, and parked in the gravel side lot. I parked a block over and walked. Hat low, hoodie up, clipboard in hand. Walked straight into the front entrance. The receptionist looked up. Can I help you? I'm here to check the HVAC panel layout. I lied, tapping the fake badge I'd printed. She nodded, barely glanced. Back hallway. Offices 1 through 4 are in use. I moved quietly, and there she was, office 3. Door correct. Samantha sat alone, typing. No one else inside. Just her. Filing. Typing. Talking to someone on her Bluetooth. No CM. No man at all. She finished the call, stood, stretched, and packed her things. Left 15 minutes later. That night, I said nothing. Let her talk about budget cuts and how clients were asking more of her. But inside, I knew the initials were a cover, and the real truth was still out there, moving just outside my reach. The following week, the patterns deepened. Samantha's appointments grew more erratic. Meetings scheduled with less notice, sometimes overlapping, sometimes missing location details entirely. When I asked her about one she had labeled outreach, she brushed it off. That's just admin talk. Asset management. I smiled, nodded, played along. But I already knew that wasn't what it stood for. The deeper I looked, the more I realized every 3-letter acronym she used could have 2 meanings, one real, one crafted. She'd mastered the art of coded calendars. Thursday night, after she fell asleep, I opened the synced keystroke file and scrolled. The words client discretion popped up twice. Envelope rate once. That was new. I searched through her documents and found a draft invoice stored in a hidden folder called Resources or Scrolled. It wasn't addressed to a business. Just initials, R, F, and the line item read, Standard Consult, 90 minutes, $800. The money didn't add up. Her part-time job shouldn't have been bringing that kind of cash in. But now I understood how she could afford random spa visits, surprise boutique outfits, and $200 skincare sets without blinking. She wasn't spending savings. She was earning under the radar and hiding it in a shoebox upstairs. That weekend, I waited until she went for one of her wellness errands, then searched the closet again. The box had changed. No longer just gift cards and loose cash. There was a second envelope now, tucked under a layer of scarves. Inside, 4 gift cards, each maxed to $500, still wrapped in activation slips. I snapped photos of everything, put it all back exactly how I found it. When she came home, she didn't speak for the first 10 minutes. Just poured wine, checked her phone, and stood in the kitchen scrolling with her lip tucked tight between her teeth. I walked in behind her, quiet. You good? I asked. She jumped slightly. Yeah, just text from Jana. She's helping me coordinate next week. Work busy. Always, she said, then added, but worth it. Later that night, I finally opened the new contact in her phone, one I'd seen come up again and again, Arlene. No photo, no address, just a number and a vague label. I ran it. Burner. But the area code was local. I waited 2 days, then called it from a separate number I'd set up. Yeah, a man's voice answered. Is this Arlene? Pause. Depends who's asking. Looking for consult. Samantha said you handle the scheduling. Another pause. Then he hung up. I didn't call again. Didn't need to. Because now I knew there was someone behind her operation. Someone who protected names and covered tracks. Someone married, possibly high profile, and absolutely involved. RF from the invoice. R. Lane from the contacts. I wasn't dealing with a single affair. I was looking at something organized. Professional. The next morning, I told her I had to drive out of town for a few days. A work install. Overnight. She said she'd miss me, but didn't press for details. Just kissed my cheek and told me to bring her back something fun. I didn't leave town. I booked a room downtown, and I began compiling everything. Call logs, calendar files, screenshots of her folders, copies of her receipts. I drafted an anonymous letter. I attached a USB drive. I prepared 2 copies, one addressed to the IRS, the other to the Department of Labor. The last page? A cover letter titled, Undeclared Compensation Pipeline, Local Business Executive. I didn't send it yet. Not until I knew for certain who RF was. But I was close. And Samantha? She was just about out of places to hide. By the time Monday rolled around, I was done guessing. I played every card with patience, sat through enough fake meetings and cover stories to fill novel. But now I wanted facts. I wanted to see it. Not a hunch, not a receipt. I wanted eyes on the truth, and I was going to get it. I told Samantha I had a long install across the state, one that required an overnight shift. You'll have the place to yourself, I said. She smiled, almost too easily. You were too hard. I shrugged, kissed her cheek, and threw my bag in the truck. What she didn't know was that the bag was empty and the truck was parked 2 blocks away from the house by noon. I had cameras now. Discreet ones, small, no glow, synced to a private cloud. One in the kitchen, another facing the front hallway, and a third concealed inside a fake air vent, pointed at the staircase and main hallway. But the real gold was in her phone. The mirror device tracker fed me GPS signals in real time. At 2:40 p.m., she left the house. By 3 o'clock, she was parked behind the Wellspring Executive Lounge again. Only this time, I didn't follow. I waited, watched the camera feeds. At 3:17 p.m., she came back. Not home, just the house. With someone else. Tall man. Clean haircut. Expensive watch. Early 40s. She opened the door for him. Let him inside. No hesitation. He didn't look around. Didn't ask questions. He knew where to go. He followed her straight down the hallway. Out of the camera's frame. I clicked into the audio panel. She laughed and said something about not too loud. He said he's gone for the night. She replied, yes. We got time. I stopped the feed. That was enough. I had confirmation. Time-stamped footage. Clear audio. I didn't need more. My hands were clenched. Not from shock, not even from anger, but from something else, a slow, dangerous clarity. She hadn't just lied. She let someone else walk through my front door. She gave him a key to my space, even if metaphorical. And that was the final line. I opened the folder I'd been building, titled Proof. I uploaded the footage. I backed it up to a separate drive. I made another copy and set it to send via scheduled email. Then I opened the folders labeled Clients and Financials, compiling her cash flow patterns, her gift card trail, the flag communications. Then I opened my YouTube draft channel, Hometown Hustle, a quiet little project I'd been building for months, originally meant to talk about finance from the ground up, veteran budget strategies, tax loopholes, survival tips. But now, it had a bigger purpose. Episode 1. How to spot undeclared income, and why your neighbor might be running a side hustle you'll regret. I filmed it in the motel room, clean background, clear voice. Used altered examples, blurred images, kept identities hidden. For now. But the story? It was all there. It wasn't just Samantha anymore. It was what she represented. The married executive facilitating private arrangements. The clients paying under the table. The abuse of consulting as a cover for adult companionship. And I knew something else, too. This wasn't just about betrayal. This was about control. She thought she had it. But when she came back from that little meeting, humming as she hung her coat up and asked if I had fun out of town, I smiled. And I said, you won't believe what I learned this weekend. She laughed. Tell me. Oh, I will, I said. Just not yet. Because the world would hear it first. And she'd never see it coming. Tuesday morning started like any other. Samantha brewed her favorite caramel roast, humming something I didn't recognize, her voice too cheerful for the cloudy weather outside. She moved through the kitchen like she hadn't snuck another man into our home less than 24 hours earlier. I watched her pour 2 mugs. One for her, one for me. As she handed mine over, I met her eyes. You sleep okay? I asked. She nodded. Best in days. I smiled. Good. We sat down for breakfast, but my mind wasn't on the eggs. It was on the cloud feed. I'd spent most of the night reviewing the footage. Every step, every glance, every whispered word between her and the man I'd now identified as Richard Langston, a name that showed up on 3 flag payments in her Venmo archive under various aliases. I'd matched the face from the hallway camera to a photo on the board of a local business forum. So, real estate development. Married. 2 kids. Donated to a local church fundraiser just last month. And there he was, in my house, gripping Samantha's waist like they'd done this before. Often, the tracker showed they spent 82 minutes inside. At no point did she check her phone, message me, or so much as pretend it was a business consult. It was coordinated, practiced, professional. At 9:15 a.m., after she left for another supposed client review, I walked in her office space and opened the locked drawer with a spare key I'd made weeks earlier. Inside, a contract, unofficial, unwitnessed, but clear. Arrangement of discretion and compensation, RL. It spelled everything out. Time slots, payment structure, gifting standards, even a clause about mutual digital silence, meaning no names and messages. It was typed, signed, and dated. That same week, she told me she was starting slow with local consulting. I sat down, pulled out my phone, and opened my YouTube creator dashboard. Episode 1 had already crossed 10,000 views. Comments were flooding in. People speculating, connecting dots, sharing their own stories about under-the-table business culture. My email had over 200 unread messages, many of them asking for interviews, collaborations, or links to proof. I hadn't even named her yet, but it was working. The next day, I filed 2 anonymous reports, one to the IRS, one to the Department of Labor. Both included encrypted drives containing copies of Samantha's shadow invoices, the payment trails from Langston's Shell account, and footage of their coded exchanges at Wellspring. I didn't care if it was legal or not. It was unethical, and it was over. I came home that evening to find Samantha on the couch, legs curled under her, watching a rom-com with a blanket tucked around her like she didn't have the weight of her own secrets crushing down on her shoulders. She looked up as I entered. "You're home early. Finished faster than I thought." She smiled. "Want to watch with me?" "Sure," I said, taking a seat beside her. She reached over, slid her hand into mine. Warm, familiar, deceptive. I let it stay there, because her world was about to fall, and I wanted her to feel every inch of comfort before the floor dropped. That night, I scheduled episode 2. Title: The Real Price of a Shadow Client, When Your Spouse Works Off the Books. I used voice modulation. I blurred all faces. But the story? It was hers. And soon, it would be everywhere. The moment I uploaded episode 2, the momentum shifted. Something about that one, my tone, the carefully anonymized footage, the clear reference to how cash-only arrangements hide under corporate jargon. It struck a nerve. Comments exploded. My inbox became a war zone. Half the messages were from people connecting dots to real businesses. The other half were from whistleblowers, people who knew too much and had been waiting for someone to say it out loud. One message stood out. It came from a burner email. The subject line read, "Langston's a repeat offender." The message was brief. "You're not the first. Want names?" I replied immediately. In less than an hour, I had a spreadsheet. 3 other women, 2 of whom had also worked consulting roles in the past 2 years, all paid in cash or under fake reimbursement accounts. All had abruptly left their positions without explanation. The third had allegedly received a settlement after her husband caught wind and threatened legal action. I cross-checked the payment patterns, and sure enough, same style, same formats, same silence. Langston wasn't just some bored businessman. He was a predator with a system. And Samantha? She was just another spoke in the wheel. But that was about to seize. I packaged the spreadsheet, paired it with the video links, and sent it all to a business reporter I knew from my own background in IT security. She'd written a piece last year on quiet fraud in real estate circles. I didn't even have to say much. The files spoke for themselves. By Thursday morning, she emailed back, "Holy hell, I'm on this." That same day, I made final tweaks to my biggest episode yet. Episode 3, Inside the Hustle, When Marriage Masks a Business Model. I used blurred silhouettes, paused footage of client check-ins, doctored voices, and real documentation. The ad revenue alone projected to triple my monthly income. I walked into our kitchen that evening to find Samantha humming and chopping vegetables. She looked up. Hey, babe, want shrimp or chicken for the stir fry? Whatever you're in the mood for. She smiled. Chicken, then. You always say it's safer. She had no idea what irony she was walking through. As she cooked, I checked my phone. The IRS had acknowledged receipt of the report. The Department of Labor had done the same. Both responses were automated, but I didn't need confirmation. I knew the evidence was too detailed to be ignored. The real moment came at 9:47 p.m. I was on the couch. Samantha had gone upstairs to finish laundry. My phone buzzed. Private number. I answered. Mr. Carter, the voice asked. Speaking. This is Ellen Shun from Morning Ledger. I run the Weekend podcast feature. I already knew who she was. I'd like to interview you, she continued. Anonymously. The story's going live. Langston's people refused comment. But the pressure's building. We'd like your angle. I agreed. 15 minutes. Remote interview. Voice disguised. I told them everything. Strategically. Not with bitterness. Not with spite. With facts. With poise. By Saturday, it was live. Headline: Whistleblower exposes hidden companion economy in suburban circles. Tied to local exec. Within 12 hours, Langston's firm posted a suspension notice. Within 24, Samantha got a call while we were mid-breakfast. She answered confused. Her voice dropped, then cracked. She left the room. When she came back, she was pale. They're pausing all contracts. Some client found a video, she said, trembling. Must be a mix-up, I said, sipping my coffee. She stared at me. I don't understand what's happening, she said. Someone's leaking things. Maybe someone got tired of being lied to. Her lips parted, but she said nothing, just turned away. And for the first time since this all began, I felt absolutely nothing for her. Not pity, not rage, just freedom. She came into the living room Sunday night like a shadow swallowing the walls. The lights were low, the house quiet. The only sound was the faint hum of the refrigerator and her uneven breathing. I was on the couch, laptop open, finalizing episode 4. Her voice cut the silence like a dull blade. We need to talk. I didn't look up right away. Just saved the draft, closed the screen, and set it aside. I looked at her, really looked. Her eyes were red. Her makeup smudged. She hadn't bothered changing out of the hoodie she'd worn since morning. She looked smaller, like the air had deflated something she'd been keeping inside for years. You were right, she said quietly. I said nothing. I wasn't consulting. Still nothing. I thought I had control, she continued. It started small. Langston offered a side gig, just talking to people. Then it got bigger. Messier. And I kept going. You didn't think to stop? Her voice cracked. I thought I could handle it. I laughed once, short and bitter. You couldn't handle telling the truth, let alone the mess you made. She dropped into the chair across from me, hugging her knees. Everything's falling apart. Langston suspended. My phone won't stop ringing. Clients disappearing. I'm frozen out. Blacklisted. You built a house of cards on someone else's name, I said. Now you're surprised it collapsed? She wiped her eyes. I didn't think it would hurt you this much. I leaned forward. You didn't think at all, Samantha. Or maybe you did, and I just wasn't part of the equation. She looked up slowly, her voice desperate now. But we can fix it. Please. We can move. Start over. Just you and me. Start over. She stood, came closer. You're smart. You're steady. You're the only thing in my life that's ever worked. Let me fix this. Let me fix us. There is no us. She froze. I stood, walked over to the bookshelf, and pulled a manila envelope out from behind a stack of old manuals. I dropped it onto the coffee table. She stared at it like it might detonate. What's this? Divorce packet. Already filled. Just needs your signature. Tears started falling again. No. Brian, you can't. I can. I did. You just going to throw everything away? No, I said. You did. I'm just packing up what's left. She reached for my arm. I didn't love him. I didn't love any of them. I swear to you, this wasn't about that. It wasn't about love, I said, stepping back. It was about greed, control, attention. You wanted to feel powerful, so you sold pieces of yourself behind my back. Then you came home, cooked dinner, and acted like I was lucky to have you. She sank into the couch, sobbing now. I didn't flinch. I lost everything, she whispered. But I didn't want to lose you. You lost me the day you decided secrecy was more exciting than honesty. She looked up. I can change. I nodded. So can locks. The house is already in my name. Utilities, too. I gave you 2 weeks to find a new place. Her jaw dropped. You're kicking me out. I'm letting you go, I said. Fully. Finally. She looked around like the walls were crumbling. You told everyone, didn't you? I didn't have to. You exposed yourself. She stood, shaking. You're cold. No, I said. I'm done. And in that silence, between her last plea and my final step away, something broke that couldn't be fixed. She took the envelope, her hands trembling. She didn't slam the door when she left. She just disappeared. And I didn't watch her go, because for the first time in months, I was already looking forward. Thank you for listening to the end. I hope you enjoyed it very much. Don't forget to give a like and tell us in the comments what you would do in such a situation.